So I've been fasting for the better part of 2 years now, on and off. For the most of that time, I haven't really had breakfast regularly. I've mostly done 8-16 fasting, but in more recent times, especially in the last 6 months, I've done a lot of one meal a day fasting, and I'll tell you, that's helped me lose quite a lot of weight. If you've seen my physique on Instagram, I'm about 14-15% body fat right now, you know, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. Almost towards the end of my fat loss goal, but the first time I tried it, I had hit a plateau, and turns out that plateau was because I was counting my calories wrong and I was actually eating more than I thought. But I said, what the hell? Let's try this fasting thing that everyone's always talking about. Everyone's always, oh, intermittent fasting, lose weight, lose weight. I'm like, okay, let's see if it works. And it did. I believe that was when I was around 210 pounds still. And I was just finishing up high school. I was about 220, 210. So this was a little under 2 years ago. Yeah, yeah. Actually, no, a little more than 2 years ago. I stand corrected. It was towards the middle of high school. But, anyways, I would wait till lunch to eat, and that felt weird for me for a while as someone who had always had breakfast. But I started to feel pretty great in the mornings, you know? That's another thing I'll touch on. Fasting is great for mental clarity as well, not just for your fat loss goals. But it worked for me, and the main reason it did work was because it helped me control my calories. Once I got used to not eating in the mornings, I wasn't hungry as much, so I would only be hungry from around noon to 8 o'clock because that's when I trained my body to be hungry. And that took a while to build up to. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of days where I would fail, where I would be really hungry in the mornings and I'd be like, oh my god, I need to eat something. That's normal, and I'll talk about that as well. It takes time to build up to it. But that was my first experience with fasting. Stopped doing it for a while, plateaued again on my fat loss, and then I realized, okay, if I want to take this to the next level, I got to get back on that. I got to start fasting again. And so I did. And it worked for me again. I got down to about 190 pounds by the end of last summer, 190, 195, and things were good. Continued doing it into my next semester of university, and then I even gave one meal a day a crack for a good few months. And that helped me lose a lot of weight. I mean, I was 180 by the start of 2024, not bad. Fell off it again, was doing 816, and then I plateaued. Then I plateaued around 170. Got back on it a few weeks ago. It's been 3, maybe 4 weeks now since I started doing consistent one meal a day again. It's funny, I haven't lost any weight, but I've lost body fat, which is kind of crazy. So I might have been eating at maintenance calories, but my body is adapting so well to the fasting that it's actually recomposing itself to make me leaner, to just lose fat mass pretty much, and maybe add some muscle. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weighing myself at the wrong times, but I digress. Fasting is pretty good. It's pretty good for whatever fitness goal you have because pretty much everyone's fitness goal involves losing fat to some degree. And even if you're bulking, the goal with bulking isn't to gain fat. The goal with bulking is to gain lean mass. So I'd even up to fast while I'm bulking. Not one meal a day. It's going to be pretty hard to get 4,000 calories in on one meal. But 816 while you're bulking, you get all that 2,000 calories here, 2,000 calories there between two meals. Seems pretty solid to me. I could do that pretty consistently. But this isn't a bulking video. This is just generally about fasting. There's a lot of smaller benefits to fasting that people don't talk about beyond simply just appetite control, which is a major one. And for me, someone who has a gigantic appetite, which is one of the reasons it's hard for me to lose weight, it's really helped with that. Like even at dinner now, when I have my one meal, I struggle sometimes to completely control myself, but it's a lot harder to eat more than I'm supposed to in one meal than in two. Because I could literally have, if I ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you let me, I could eat 2,000 calories at every meal, more than that, and end up at 6,000 calories by the end of the day. So if you're like me and you just keep eating and eating and eating if you don't control yourself, fasting is definitely something you should try. So that's the first thing it does for you, appetite control. Second, you actually get a temporary HGH spike, I believe, after 12 or 14 hours of fasting. I don't remember the exact statistic, and studies will vary on this, but most studies agree that that boost is for about 500% for a couple of hours during that window before you break your fast. So if you're fasting, let's say, one meal a day, and you're having that one meal within an hour or two, that's 22 or 23 hours fasted. That means if it starts at 12 hours and you go to 22 hours, That's 10 hours in that window where your HGH is spiked like that. For those of you who don't know, HGH is human growth hormone, which is something that the body needs to grow when you're during puberty. Your body secretes a lot of it naturally so that you can grow, but it really helps with muscle gain and, muscle growth, muscle maintenance if you're cutting, which is one of the reasons why fasting is such a good way to lose fat and keep your body composition. This is why I haven't lost any muscle fasting, and I've just become leaner without even losing any weight. I think the increased HGH could be a gigantic factor of that. So that's another thing, right? Appetite control, increased HGH. This one, if you don't believe me, look it up, because again, I might not be a credible source because I'm not a scientist, but there's a bunch of studies on this. Some studies claim it goes as high as 2,000% for part of that window, which I don't entirely believe. That might be like a freak outlier, but if that's true, that's pretty damn crazy. So, human growth hormone, and then there's another thing that your body does when it fasts, when you fast. It enters this process known as autophagy, which essentially means your body's getting rid of dead cells, things that your body doesn't need anymore. And this has been linked to potentially, helping cure sickness, just general wellness, and there's a potential link between this and even curing cancer, because your body might be getting rid of those cells that it doesn't need, which are cancerous, which, again, this hasn't been confirmed yet. They're still studying this, but if that's true, that's pretty damn cool. Fasting can help cure cancer. Who would have thought? So those are the major physiological benefits that come to mind, but there's more to it than that. Like fasting, for a fourth thing, it's a great test of your discipline. Like the first time I fasted, having to sit just, a few feet away from where my fridge is, because that's where I do most of my work, just in my living room over there. Having to sit just a few feet away from the fridge where all the food is, all the food I like to eat, I was like, damn, I really want to go, warm up some chicken breast right now or some steak or whatever was in there. And so that was a big test of my discipline. Now I can sit there all day for more than a day. We'll talk about that later. And not eat and just not go for it. So that's really helped with my self-control with food. Now I'm able to, when I'm around family and everyone's having dessert, I can sit there and say no, unless I genuinely want to let myself have the dessert. Like last week, we had everyone over for a barbecue and everyone was having ice cream and I didn't want to have a cheat that night, so I said no to the ice cream. I caved a little bit with the dark chocolate. My discipline's not perfect, but a few years back, I'd be seeking out that ice cream 7 days a week, and I was 240 pounds. So there's clearly been an increase in discipline, and I think fasting is definitely one of the things I can attribute that to. So that's the fourth thing, increased discipline. And then the fifth thing, you genuinely enjoy your food more. Now, when it hits 5 p.m., which is around the time I break my fast usually, I love eating. Like, I already loved eating before, as you could tell with my gigantic appetite story. Naturally, that comes with the love of eating, but I love eating so much more now. It's insane. Like, my mouth literally starts watering sometimes when I pull my food out of the fridge, just because I'm hungry, but two, also just because I know it's going to taste so damn good. And it's all healthy foods now. I've gotten my body accustomed to eating during a short window and only eating healthy foods. Like, when I break my fast, I'm having 4 eggs, give or take. Maybe I have one more, one less, whatever I have that day. Some Brazil nuts, some almonds, some cashews, 1 date as like a little treat, because I can't have too many or else I get acne, and carbs as well. And then I'll have my dinner, right? Whatever my mom makes. So either way, I enjoy it a lot more, right? Like most people would think, oh, that's kind of boring. Like I want something that tastes nicer, and I get that. But for me, those eggs taste like fucking candy. Those nuts taste really good. Just put a little bit of salt on them. Oof, You kind of develop more of a taste for the simpler things again. It's a really nice process to undergo after you've fasted on and off for a long time to get consistent at it, and then just every day look forward to that time where you break your fast and enjoy the food that much more. Like it's literally exponential how much more I enjoy the food. So now that I've more than likely convinced you that fasting is something you should try, especially if you're on a cut. But even if you're on a bulk, give it a shot. 2 meals a day, you can bulk still. But now that I've convinced you that it's something you should try, and This doesn't benefit me in any way. It's free. It's literally, you literally spend less money because you're probably going to be eating less. But there, that's number six. You'll your bank account will thank you because you're eating less. But I digress. Now I'm going to tell you how I actually increased my fasting time, the actual practical steps I used to get from someone who ate 3 meals a day and pretty much ate around the clock to now eating for a window of maybe 2 hours every day. So, the first thing is, like anything fitness related, health related, progressive overload, right? We know that concept from the gym. You got to slowly build up your resistance over time. You can't go into the gym and start curling a 50-pound dumbbell right on your first day unless you're a freak in nature, you know? You got to start with the 20s or whatever weight you can start with. Maybe you can start with 25, maybe 10, but you got to start lower and then you got to build it up over time. It's the same thing with fasting, right? Same thing with pretty much any discipline related practice. I started just simply not eating after dinner. And that was tough for me because I always had snacks around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. But that window right there, if I stopped eating at 8, had a little snack after dinner maybe, and then, whatever, I cut it off at 8. So not necessarily not eating after dinner, but not eating after a certain time every night, right? So cut it off after 8. If you're going from 8 and then you're having breakfast at 8 the next morning, that's a 12-hour fast right there. That's 12-12. That's a good start. If you're learning how to fast right now, if you're trying to get more into the habit of fasting, start with that. Start with a 12-12. Don't eat from around a set time at night to a set time the next morning. You could still have your 3 meals, just slightly, in a slightly shorter window. You have more fasting time, which will give greater benefits to your body. From there, what I did is I jumped straight to 8:16 because I just stopped eating breakfast, and that was difficult. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend slowly pushing your breakfast back if you can, and slowly having smaller breakfasts so you're used to consuming more calories later. So, for example, say you have a job to go to at 9 o'clock and you eat your breakfast at 7:30, so you stop eating 7:30 the previous night. Start doing a 13-hour fasting window where you start eating at 8:30. Maybe you're on the road to your job. This is an opportunity to make your breakfast smaller. Bring, maybe some almonds as your breakfast, or maybe hard boil some eggs and bring those with you. And then slowly push it back to 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock, all the way until noon. And then once you've got to noon, you're pretty much doing an 8:16 at that point, and you're just eating 2 meals. So slowly add an hour every couple of weeks to your fast, or as fast as you can add it, right? Everyone has different levels of discipline. Some people can just start doing 8:16 like this, right? It's not, not as difficult for some. But if you struggle to get there right away, just add an hour, even add half an hour every couple of weeks, every week, whatever speed you can go at until you get to the point you want to be at. Then once you're at 8:16, it gets a little bit more difficult to add time. Because, you could just keep pushing your lunch back, but every time you do it, your body has to readjust to being, hungry during that period again. To not being hungry during that period. So, but the same concept applies. Continually push it back. This is what I did. I did that until I got to a 4-hour window where I was just eating like a snack before dinner and then dinner. And then I fell back to 8:16 for a little while. But then from there, because I had already done that whole pattern, I just pushed myself back to eating in an hour or two. So it was pretty much just one long meal, and that's what I'm doing now. So that's the first thing. If you want to learn how to fast, you want to get into the habit, you're going to have to build your discipline with it, which comes with progressively overloading how long you fast for. So that's the first practical step. Second one, I'm going to say this in pretty much every video that I talk about discipline. Meditate. Definitely start meditating, because the thing with meditation is you're essentially denying yourself the mind wandering that usually occurs in your brain. So if you don't know how to meditate, the TLDR is focus on your breath. When your mind wanders, realize that you're having a thought and then refocus on the breath. That's how you meditate. You're not meant to clear your mind. That's impossible. Your mind will always think thoughts. You just need to know how to refocus it. That's the practice. If you're able to refocus your mind from those tempting thoughts that you want to think of, whatever it is that your mind wants to think of, if you're able to deny yourself on that level, you can deny yourself food, right? It gets a lot easier. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect every time. It's easier to deny yourself a thought if you're meditating for 10 minutes and then have that thought later. But, it's a lot harder to deny yourself food for another 8 hours. But it's a start, and it'll definitely help you because it's that conscious practice. Every time you deny yourself the indulgence of that thought, you're getting another rep in. It's like doing another bicep curl, right? Except it's up here. So that's the second thing. Meditate. And then the third thing is don't be super restrictive with what you eat during your window because that'll make the discipline a little easier. So this sounds counterproductive if you're trying to lose weight, but give yourself a little bit more of a cheat while you're learning to fast. Because then once you get into the habit of fasting, you can remove that cheat. And then if you're planning to do this long term, which I think you should, not extreme fasting, not like one meal a day long term, beyond 4-ish months that could start causing muscle loss, and we'll talk about that. But to get into that period for the first couple of weeks, give yourself like a little reward. Like once I get into that window, I can have a piece of dark chocolate, right? Whatever your level of diet strictness is. For me, I don't eat any chocolate now, but for a while, I used 1 or 2 pieces of dark chocolate after dinner as my motivation to get into that fasted window. I would let myself have that if I got into that window. So that's another little technique you can use. And now just some general disclaimers, some fasting safety tips. So some people might be thinking, oh, so you could probably fast for more than a day. Yeah, I've done that before. Longest fast I've done is 40 hours. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not bad for you to do 40 hours. I think you can do up to 48 hours safely, potentially more, but I don't know. Studies pretty much conflict on that, whether it's like 2 or 3 days until your body starts seeing negatives from fasting. But I'd say if you want, try a 2-day fast if you're really strict with it and you can pull that off. But you get most of the benefits in regards to fat loss if you're doing 1 meal a day anyways, because you're getting that appetite control. So like I said, I've done a 40-hour fast and I felt pretty good after that. I felt pretty lean after I did that fast, but then you eat and your body kind of resets it anyways. So I'd say just develop a habit of doing it every day, stick to that. And that's a lot more sustainable long term. But again, if you want to experiment with longer fasts, go ahead. I just don't recommend anything over 2 days. Do your own research on that because most studies agree that after 2 and 3 days, it's one of those two, your body starts to cannibalize muscle tissue because it goes into starvation mode. So, and again, I don't know if it's after 2 or 3 days. This is why I'm not advising you to do more than 2 days because I don't know. But I do know that below 2 days is safe, 100%. As long as you don't have some outstanding medical condition that would prevent that, but I don't know of any. So, but yeah, 1 meal a day is safe. 8-16 is very safe. I really think that's healthier for us than eating 3 meals because you get so much extra mental clarity in the mornings. That's another thing I wanted to touch on. When you're fasted, your mind is clear. Like right now, I can yap for 3 hours to this camera and, my mind's not going to go anywhere because I'm fasted. Maybe I'll be thinking about food in a couple hours because it's almost 3 o'clock now and it's about 2 hours away from when I break my fast. But because you're not digesting, the blood's not going to your stomach and your intestines and all those digestive organs. You can have it in your mind. You don't have to disperse it to other parts of the body that it doesn't need to go to. So I don't know if that's exactly the science behind it or not, but again, look it up. Fasting has been proven by science to offer more mental clarity while you're in a fasted state. So if if you're a student or you work from home or generally you just have a job where you work in the early hours of the day and you do knowledge work, you work with your brain, fast while you're working, or at least for the first half of your workday. You'll get more done. Trust me, I'm a music producer. I do most of my producing in the morning when I'm fasted. And then if I have to do more later, I do it before I break my fast at 5 o'clock. And it's great. As for energy levels, when it comes to working out, this is one thing I think I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video. I don't really find myself super tired anymore when I'm fasted because I'm adapted to it. Of course, when you deprive yourself of an energy source that you normally have, your body's going to take some time to adjust to it. But once it does, you start getting adjusted to eating the fat on your body more for energy. Or sorry, your body eats its own fat for energy. You don't literally go eat yourself, but your body eats away at its own fat for energy a lot more than it would before when it relied more on carbs and other energy intake. So if you want to keep your energy up while fasting, you can try having more carbs during your meal. Like if you have one meal or two meals or whatever during your fasted window. Or, sorry, not your fasted window, your eating window. But even if you're on keto or carnivore or something that's low in carbs, you can fast and still feel pretty energetic. Like for me, I've done half marathons while fasted. It's, you can do it. It's a thing you can do. It's just a matter of getting adjusted to it. So if you're worried that it's going to impact your workouts, you can either choose to just wait till you get adjusted to it, or if it like even you adjust to it and you're very tired still when you go work out, that could be a diet problem or a sleep problem. But if that's all dialed in, you could even just work out after you break your fast if you really need that energy boost. Have some dates or some other relatively high carb fruit before your workout to get that glycogen going, to get that energy. But I find my energy levels to be fine. So TLDR this video, start fasting. If you fast already or you're looking to get into it and you want to talk about it, shoot me a message on Instagram, link in my YouTube bio. If you're more experienced than me at fasting or you have a bone to pick with me about it, shoot me a DM. Happy to talk about it. Anyways, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something from this video.